do the third step prayer, please, sir.
Perfect. The third step prayer, which is on page 63, and I am Rob Kay, a recovered alcoholic. God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, and I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. And I do thy will always.
All right. Thank you, Rob. Okay, we are on page 68, and we're near the top. So what we're going to do is we're going to start at we reviewed our fears thoroughly, Rob, and then we'll kind of take it from there.
Sounds great, Leo.
All right.
Page 68, everybody. We reviewed our fears thoroughly. We put them on paper, even though we had no resentment in connection with them. We asked ourselves why we had them. Wasn't it because self-reliance failed us? Self-reliance was good as far as it went, but it didn't go far enough. Some of us once had great self-confidence, but it didn't fully solve the fear problem or any other. When it made us cocky, it was worse.
Right. And this is a good step to really go through. And this is a instructive. Bill is basically talking about what we need to do. And that is we're talking about fears right now. And we reviewed them and put them on paper. There's something psychological that happens when you put something down on paper. It clears the mind, gives you the ability to think about something, and it actually helps to organize your thoughts. And so just because and what it'll end up doing is giving you the ability to really kind of think and work through them. And this is where Bill is at. We ask ourselves why we had them. Okay, so we did the why, what, how, when, and where kind of process, and we kind of find a little bit out about ourselves, and that's kind of what we're trying to find out here. Got these fears. Why do I have it? What caused it? When did it happen? And how am I going to actually deal with this? And what did I do that might have gone wrong? You know, the self-reliance, self-confidence, maybe a bit cocky, you know, those type of things. We basically are going to look in and deal with that. Rob?
Yeah, somebody once gave me in one of the meetings, they gave me an idea of why they were talking about why cocky made it worse. Because, you know, when you think about it, if you're full of oneself, which is what the definition is of cocky, you know, when we exert our own arrogance as a way to counteract how afraid we are, it only makes matters worse. This is how self-reliance failed us. You know, so when we go into a situation where we're scared and we try to act like we're not scared, we try to act with bravado, you know, it just makes people around us go, oh God, here he comes, you know. So that I just wanted to put that out there because you remember on page 6 that Bill talked about cocksureness. He had it now, you know, he had this, you know, he didn't, but you know, in our minds we try to think we have it. Perhaps there is a better way. We think so, for we are now on a different basis, the basis of trusting and relying upon God. We trust infinite God rather than finite self. We're in a world to play the role he assigned, just to the extent that we do as we think he would have us do, and humbly rely on him. Does he enable us to match calamity with serenity?
Yeah, and that's a good thing that Bill's doing too. Perhaps there is a better way. We think so. And then we are now on a different basis because we've found our higher power and we're putting our trust and confidence into that higher power and relying on the answers that get provided by asking questions of your higher power. And that trust is important. It's probably in some cases one of the most difficult things to do because a lot of us are not that trust. Well, a lot of us are trust averse in regards to that, especially when we find ourselves at the beginning of trying to recover from alcoholism. We're a little bit resentful of people. We're probably a little inward thinking, and at this point, trying to put your reliance on something that you might not be able to see or feel, that type of thing, is a big step for us. And so doing so takes a bit of time here, but that trust is probably the most important thing that comes out of this particular paragraph. And we have to rely on that, and it's kind of that saying I have: leap and the net will appear. And the idea here is to really start to trust that higher power, and start to listen to what that higher power is telling you in the way that what is the next right thing to do. And that reliance is going to help strengthen our resolve, and cause us to have a kind of a more peaceful and serene existence going forward. Rob?
Yeah, I love the next line that's the next paragraph. And I was gonna say something about it, but I'm just gonna read it and then we can talk about it.
Sure.
We never apologize to anyone for depending upon our Creator. We can laugh at those who think spirituality the way of weakness. Paradoxically, it is the way of strength. The verdict of the ages is that faith means courage. All men of faith have courage. They trust their God. We never apologize for God. Instead, we let him demonstrate through us what he can do. We ask him to remove our fear and direct our attention to what he would have us be. At once, we commence to outgrow fear.
Yeah, and that's really the bottom line here, is to first and foremost, we're not going to apologize for the fact that we have found a strength that we can tap into, which is our higher power. We're going to rely on that higher power for the guidance that we need in order to move forward in a positive way. And we are going to outgrow the fears that we have, because we now we've now got more strength and power behind us and beside us to deal with it. But a big thing here is never apologize for finding your higher power. Never apologize for God. Just this is really, and really, when you think about it, those that have the strongest faith have probably got the most confidence and the ability to deal with life's trials and tribulations so much better than most people that don't. So I think it's really one of those just kind of emphasis that is being put on this, and that is just a reinforcement to individuals that have in fact found their higher power to not be embarrassed or withdraw from that. Rob?
Now, as I said, this paragraph is so important to me. I used to go to a lot of meetings here in Toronto, and anybody that ever got up to the podium to speak, and they were going to talk about God as their higher power, would apologize. Why, I don't know, but they always felt they had to apologize because God was their higher power. I'm sorry I'm going to talk about this, but God is my higher power. Why, I have no idea. God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. Why would we apologize for something that is doing that for us? Okay, but my major point is that this is the fear prayer. Instead of me trying to be cocky and try to act all arrogant and tough and these things, when I have fear, now I ask God to remove it. And Lee Jean, when do I ask God to remove it? Now. This is the whole thing, is that now I can trust and rely on God to protect me, that he's going to keep me safe and wherever I go. I have to take precautions. Obviously, I'm not, I do have a brain to use, but the idea is that when I'm feeling anxiety or fear, ask God to remove it now. God, please take this away so I can enjoy the situation instead of being scared and frightened. Let me go to places so that I can be of service, so I can be of help. What can I bring to the situation instead of take from it? And that is the greatest part. This is the fear prayer. We ask him to remove our fear and direct our attention to what he would have us be. At once, we commence to outgrow fear. Powerful, simple. And that's what I love about this book. is how simple it is. At once we outgrow fear. Now about sex. Many of us needed an overhauling there, but above all, we tried to be sensible on this question. It's so easy to get way off the track. Here we find human opinions running to extremes, absurd extremes, perhaps. One set of voices cry that sex is a lust of our lower nature, a base necessity of procreation. Then we have the voices who cry for sex and more sex, who bewail the institution of marriage, who think that most of the troubles of the race are traceable to sex causes. They think we do not have enough of it, or that it isn't the right kind. They see its insignificance everywhere. One school would allow man no flavor for his fare, another would have us all on a straight pepper diet. We want to stay out of this controversy. We do not want to be the arbiter of anyone's sex conduct. We all have sex problems. We'd hardly be human if we didn't. What can we do about them?
There's a lot of things to kind of talk about here. One of which is that absolutely, sex is a natural and necessary part of our lives, but at the same time, it's in the approach, it's in the thought process, and it's in what matters most. And I think one of the things that they're trying to point out here is that we were thinking inwardly and we were being very selfish about our sex life. And it was all about what was going to please me as opposed to what might please my partner. And I think that the other part of this is to think in terms of that and not get too bogged down by some of the extremes here, whether it's sex is bad or sex is good. We need more sex, you need less sex, that type of thing. We're not going to choose sides. But the bottom line is that there is the theme or the message here is really to stop thinking of just yourself. In fact, stop thinking of yourself pretty much at all, and start thinking about the other person and what basically is going to meet their needs, their wants, and that as far as their part of in the whole process. Yeah, sure, we all have the problems, but I think that if we were to change our frame of reference, our frame of thought, and start thinking of the other person, I think that we're going to find that we're going to be much better at the whole process. Rob?
Yeah, the idea is that we stay out of other people's sex lives. What you might think is not right doesn't necessarily mean it's not right for them. It's between them and God. And that's, basically what I get out of this. I also put in the chat some the fear prayer, and also some of the information about fear that we've talked about in the past. So I think it just helps everybody a little bit. We're on page 69, everybody. We've reviewed our own conduct over the years past. Where had we been selfish, dishonest, or inconsiderate? Whom had we hurt? Did we unjustifiably arouse jealousy, suspicion, or bitterness? Where were we at fault? What should we have done instead? We got this down on paper and looked at it.
So this is really kind of a beginning of step 8, where you're starting to think of people that you have actually harmed in some manner or fashion. In this case, it's where you've been selfish, dishonest, and inconsiderate. Whom had we hurt? And the idea here is now you're changing from your own deficiencies and admitting it to another person, which is your step 4 and 5. And now you're starting to think outwardly, where you start to go, okay, who is it that I have impacted in a negative fashion or way? And what did I do? How did I do it? Why did I do it? And then what am I going to do to change and or to fix whatever that might be? And really it is at this point just an exercise of self-reflection and really starting to look at what it was that you, not what they did, but what you did to cause some problems between you and that other person. Rob?
Beautiful. In this way, we tried to shape a sane and sound ideal for our future sex life. We subjected each relation to this test. Was it selfish or not? We asked God to mold our ideals and help us to live up to them. We remembered always that our sex powers were God given and therefore good, neither to be used lightly or selfishly, nor to be despised or loathed.
So we ask God to mold our ideals and help us live up to them. So the idea here is that how best to live your life, how much better it is going to be in return in regards to the way that we start to approach things, including sex, and we go from there. Neither to be used lightly or selfishly. This is pretty deep stuff. It's pretty serious, and at the same time, I think it's really an exercise that once you kind of put it down on paper and kind of look at it, what is it that you can do better kind of starts to jump out at you. Rob?
I had to unmute myself. A goal, the idea here is it's a goal on how we want to be. Me trying to be Mr. Right. Sick people attract sick people. These are some of the notes that I have. And so, we want to be the best people we can possibly be. We come up with this ideal. We try to live up to it. And that's hopefully who we will attract. Okay. A new plan for the future. Hope to achieve in the future how I want to be. Whatever our ideal turns out to be, we must be willing to grow toward it. We must be willing to make amends where we have done harm, provided that we do not bring about still more harm in doing so. In other words, we treat sex as we would any other problem. In meditation, we ask God what we should do about each specific matter. The right answer will come if we want it.
Sure, and really we're focusing right now on sex, and I think it's important to do so. I think that this is a very private, very personal thing for each individual, and it's probably one of those areas where it's a little bit more sensitive than not. And certainly, if we've harmed somebody in our past through sex, that's one of those areas I think is very sensitive, and it's something that may or may not present itself in the ability to really make some type of an amend. It just depends. I think that this is one of those more I wouldn't call it a tricky area. I would just call it, a very sensitive and very, very private kind of thing, and it's one that needs to be handled very delicately, and but it is something that I think is necessary in order for us to get well and get better in order to do so. And we look at each specific matter because each specific instance or person is going to have probably very different needs depending on what has occurred. Rob?
Beautiful, Leo. God alone can judge our sex situation. Counsel with persons is often desirable, but we let God be the final judge. We realize that some people are as fanatical about sex as others are loose. We avoid hysterical thinking or advice.
Yeah, it's really, that's just, well, I can't say it any better than this. God will be the final judge. Some people are going to be fanatical, and we avoid hysterical thinking and advice. Pretty straightforward. Rob?
We do not tell others how to act. Suppose we fall short of the chosen ideal and stumble. Does this mean we're going to get drunk? Some people tell us so, but this is only a half-truth. It depends on us and on our motives. If we're sorry for what we have done and have the honest desire to let God take us to better things, we believe we'll be forgiven and we'll have learned our lesson. If we are not sorry and our conduct continues to harm others, we are quite sure to drink. We are not theorizing. These are facts out of our experience.
Yeah, and I think that they've had people that have actually gone through this and gone in both directions. One where they basically are very sorry for what they've done. They're being very honest about it, and they ask their higher power to get to better things, and we believe we will be forgiven, and that will solve the issue that you have at that moment. Now, if you If you're not sorry, obviously, then your motives are clearly different than what is expected or intended here. And there is a very strong likelihood, based on experience that the first 100 had, that you will in fact find yourself drinking again. So it's not really, this is based on experience. So we're not really talking about, in theory here, we're talking about real experience and people actually losing sight and not really trusting in their higher power and working with them going forward. Rob?
Yeah, selfishness, self-centeredness, page 62, they talked about this. And the idea is that now that we have access to power, we can change. Okay, our idea is, how can we help other people? What can I best do? How can I be an asset in somebody's life today? How can I make somebody's life just a little bit better? This is the whole thing. We have had an entire psychic change. Okay, so how can we, go about helping other people? This is a warning. If we are not sorry and our conduct continues to harm others, we are quite sure to drink. That's a warning. To sum up about sex, we earnestly pray for the right ideal, for guidance in each questionable situation, for sanity, and for the strength to do the right thing. If sex is very troublesome, we throw ourselves to harder into helping others. We think of their needs and work for them. This takes us out of ourselves. It quiets the imperious urge when to yield would mean heartache.
Yeah, and just it's really straightforward here. Asking for the right ideal and guidance in any questionable situation, asking for sanity and strength, and essentially to make sure that you're working towards helping others and thinking about the other person. And as long as you're doing that, then things should work out. So it's really kind of getting out of yourself and starting to think more about the other person, as we've already said. Rob?
And I love here how the fix for everything in this book. We throw ourselves, if sex is very troublesome, we throw ourselves to harder into helping others. Step 12. All throughout the book. We can talk about when Bill was going through his depression and was full of self-pity. What did he do? He went to help somebody else. When Bill's business deal fell through and he had the choice, you go to the bar, have say 3 drinks and find some company. He went to the hotel lobby, got into the phone. He went to help other people. So it's funny how Bill's just step 12 right in the middle of it. If we have been thorough about our personal inventory, we've written down a lot. We have listed and analyzed our resentments. We have begun to comprehend their futility and their fatality. We have commenced to see their terrible destructiveness. We have begun to learn tolerance, patience, and goodwill toward all men, even our enemies, where we look on them as sick people. We have listed the people we have hurt by our conduct and are willing to straighten out the past if we can.
So this is really a precursor here, but it's the beginning of an exercise that we're going to go through with our step 8 and step 9. And essentially we're basically reviewing our conduct and our fears and our harms and ultimately where those resentments are. And we're starting to comprehend the futility and their fatality. So we actually are beginning a process of getting better, and we're not only going to get better for ourselves, but we're going to get better for and with others, and that's an important confidence builder. It's one that helps experience a certain level of freedom that you may or may not have ever experienced in your life, and this willingness to kind of reach out and straighten out and do better is so important and essential to our getting better and actually getting well. If you and bottom line is that it is about reaching out to the other person and making things right. Rob?
Here's a huge shift in my thinking and my actions. We have begun to comprehend their futility and their fatality. We have commenced to see their terrible destructiveness. We have begun to learn tolerance, patience, and goodwill toward all men, even our enemies, for we look at them as sick people. A whole shift in our thinking. They are sick people, just like I was, spiritually sick. Okay. Before it was all selfishness and self-centeredness. It was all about me. Now I'm looking at other people and thinking of them as sick people, just like I was. In this book, you read again and again that faith did for us what we could not do for ourselves. We hope you are convinced now that God can remove whatever self-will has blocked you off from him. If you have already made a decision and an inventory of your growth or handicap, you have made a good beginning. That being so, you have swallowed and digested some big chunks of truth about yourself.
Yep, there's definitely a lot of things to really kind of digest and comprehend, and then and kind of come to a positive analysis of what it is that we could not do for ourselves. This is not about working with you, it's about working with other people. We hope you are convinced now that your higher power can remove whatever self-will has blocked you off from him. So that's an important thing to remember here. If you've made a decision and an inventory of your grosser handicaps, you have made a good beginning. And that is to say that if you've really done a really good step forward, very thorough, very honest, and very personal inventory, you've really got off on the right foot, and you've already started to experience some of the freedom that comes with having done an exercise such as that. And then we've moved a little bit forward in through the next few steps, and we've begun to start to consider those that we have harmed and those that we have harmed, what we can do to make amends, etc. And with doing all of this, and as Rob so well put it here, you've really had a complete change of thought, a complete change in direction as to the way you live your life. And having done that, so it takes a lot of practice, and I don't mean a little practice. I say it takes a lot of practice, because I still find myself resorting to sometimes being my old self and everything. And I have to consciously remember that I've got to think in terms of what it is the other person needs, as opposed to what I need. And it takes it, well, it helps. So, Rob?
It's growth. And that's the whole thing. We're not trying to maintain, we're trying to grow in this fellowship. We're trying to grow every day. How we feel today, and, how we're going to be, a year from now, are going to be totally different. So we're growing. The only thing that doesn't grow with me is my hair, but that's another story. And I keep asking God to help me with that. But you know what? It's not an important matter. So a little levity never hurt. Here's a promise. We hope you're convinced now that God can remove whatever self-will has blocked you off from him. So it's not self that removes it. It's God that removes it. And remember, we have made a good beginning. It's only a beginning. Okay? We have to go on further. Okay? Some people stop. They think, they start to feel better. Life starts to get a little bit better. They got a few dollars in their pocket. Their relationship is better. And they stop doing this, thinking that we've been making too hard of this situation. I'm not really an alcoholic. Well, that's the big lie, that we think that, we haven't had a drink for a couple of months, or, a little bit of time, that we're not really an alcoholic, and they stop coming to meetings. They stop doing what they need to do. Tony from the Keystone Group, he's been sober 33 years. And he does the book studies on Tuesdays and Thursdays online. And he also does in-person meetings, and he does a whole bunch of other stuff. And they keep asking him, why, Tony, why do you keep doing it after 33 years? You're not going to drink. You know what to do. He goes, if I stop doing what has kept me sober, I'll end up drinking again. And how true that is. How often have we heard long timers? Well, I don't have to do that anymore. Let a new person do that. I've done my stuff. I've done everything I need to do. No, we don't. We got to keep our relationship with God. Okay, I always put two fingers together. One is me, one is God. Okay, my connection to my higher power. I got to keep doing the things that have kept me sober, because if I stop doing them, my connection to God is going to break slowly away. And how far away until I start drinking again? I don't know. And you know what? I don't want to find the answer. But I know that I have to do the things that keep me sober, not just for today and not just for tomorrow, but for the rest of my life. Because when I stop doing it, that's when I'm in danger of taking that drink again. Because remember, my mind will tell me things that I don't want it to tell me. And every time I take somebody through the process, it reinforces in me what I need to do in order to stay sober. And that's why it's important for me to work with other people. Sorry. I'm off my soapbox now, Leo.
Oh, no, you're doing great. You're doing great, Rob. Doing great. All right, we're going to start on chapter 6, Into Action. Couple of things. I just want to make a note here, kind of at the beginning of is above all, we need to get humility, and one of the things that this is going to help us get is humility. So just kind of remember that as we go through this. Just remember also, losing humility can and will lead to taking another drink. So that's what we're purpose of this is really to go into action and do some real work here. All right, let's get started, Bob.
Okay, we are on page 72, everybody. Into action. Having made a personal inventory, what shall we do about it? We have been trying to get a new attitude, a new relationship with our Creator, and to discover the obstacles in our path. We have admitted certain defects. We have ascertained in a rough way what the trouble is. We have put our finger on the weak items in our personal inventory. Now these are about to be cast out. This requires action on our part, which, when completed, will mean that we have admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our defects. This brings us to the 5th step in the program of recovery, mentioned in the previous chapter.
True. And when we talk about some of the obstacles, we're talking about our own beliefs, our belief structure, if you will, and some of the things that hold us back. And those are the weak items that they talk about here, which are our resentments, our fears, our conducts, our harms, the things that we've done, and that type of thing. That's going to hold us back. And we're talking about really the purpose right now of our step 4 and moving into our step 5. And these defects that we've got are we're going to find that are really driven by our resentments. And that will bring us to our 5th step. And we are now ready to share this with another person. Now, to talk about that for just a second, and maybe as a review, sharing your 5th step is a really a very sensitive and personal thing. And more than likely, more times than not, you would do this with your sponsor. Somebody that understands completely what you're doing, why you're doing it, and is without judgment. And that's usually a sponsor or somebody like that. There's, in some cases, a portion of your step 5 you might want to do if you were doing it with the opposite sex. Maybe you want to find somebody of the same sex to share with. Maybe you want to share some of it with clergy or something to that effect. But it just depends. The ones that are probably least likely to be good people to share with are other family members, partners, spouses, etc., because some of the step 5 revelations may do harm or bring on resentments that you really don't want to have. And so it's probably a good idea not to share your step 5 with someone like that. I've only heard of a small handful, less than what I can count on one hand, of people that have done so. And of those that did share with another family member or spouse, did report out that it did not go over very well. So they found out the hard way that it's probably better to do it with a disinterested party, such as a sponsor. So just as a an aside for that. Rob?
Sorry, I had to unmute. I'm just copying something to put into the chat. Yeah. Whoop. That's not what I wanted to put in the chat. I apologize. Give me 1 second.
Sure.
Sorry about this, everybody. This is what I do in the background. I'm looking for these things that pertain to what we're talking about. Remember, to ourselves for awareness, to God for forgiveness, and to another human being for humility. That's why we're doing the step 5. Remember, we have kept these things inside us for a long period of time. Now we want to get them out. So instead of being inside of us, they're out. We voice them out loud so that they're out in the ether. They're out in the environment. Okay? We don't have to carry them inside anymore. The secrets are out. Now remember, we usually talk to our sponsor about these things now. And when the book came out, there weren't really sponsor-sponsee relationships the way they are today. So if you do not feel comfortable talking to your sponsor because you're afraid that they will not keep their mouth shut or that they will tell everybody else, then you do not have the right sponsor. Then change your sponsor. Okay? Because if you do not feel comfortable telling them everything, they're not for you. Okay? That's my 2 cents on that. Now, there are some things that might get you into legal trouble, and you don't want to put your sponsor or the other person into legal jeopardy. Talk to a lawyer. Talk to a priest. Okay? So think about what you are about to say and what you wisely used your brain. And, as I say, if you have killed somebody or done something that is illegal, telling your sponsor puts them in, or your sponsor puts them in a rough situation at times. Okay, so use the person that can listen to those things without putting you in jeopardy. Okay. This is perhaps difficult, especially discussing our defects with another person. We think we have done well enough in admitting these things to ourselves. There is doubt about that. In actual practice, we usually find a solitary self-appraisal insufficient. Many of us thought it necessary to go much further. We will be more reconciled to discussing ourselves with another person when we see good reasons why we should do so. The best reason first. If we skip this vital step, we may not overcome drinking. Time after time, newcomers have tried to keep to themselves certain facts about their lives. Trying to avoid this humbling experience, they have turned to easier methods. Almost invariably, they got drunk. Having persevered with the rest of the program, they wonder why they fell. We think the reason is that they never completed their house cleaning. They took inventory all right, but hung on to some of the worst items in stock. They only thought they had lost their egoism and fear. They only thought they had humbled themselves. But they had not learned enough of humility, fearlessness, and honesty in the sense we find it necessary until they told someone else all their life story.
So, important point here. One is that so many people have found that the exercise of taking your step 4 and admitting it to another person and doing it thoroughly without reservation and being very, very honest about every facet and every corner of your life and getting it out into the open is the necessary step that you should go through. If you don't and you hold back, you're probably going to find that you are incomplete in your journey in getting better and getting well. And you're going to find that that is, in fact, a probable cause of just the idea that you, one, aren't trusting enough of the person that you're talking to. You're not trusting enough of yourself in order to really fully realize the goodwill and the good feeling that comes with admitting everything, getting it out into the open, as Rob said, getting it off, a weight off your shoulders is time and again you hear people say that it was just an entirely enlightening experience for them to have gone through the process. The more complete, the more thorough, the more private that you are with regards to the things that you share, the better off you're going to be. Falling short is indicative of your holding back on your own recovery. So the idea here is that you really want to be complete, thorough, and completely open. And another thing here is it's just your life story that applies to this step. We're not talking about others. We're talking about you and only you. And it's important to note that. It's about letting go. It's about basically burying your ego, your any fears that you have, and being fearless in your approach to this. And only with that do you actually fully realize the humility that we're actually driving for. Remember, at the very beginning of this chapter, I said, above all, we need to get humility. And this is that exercise that's going to help you realize that. Rob?
The first thing we gain when we come into the rooms or the fellowship is humility. I don't know what to do. You know, before I tried all these different things, like, and I know what to do this time. I know what to do. When we come into the fellowship, humility. I don't know what to do. Please help me. The first thing we lose when we go back out is humility. I know what to do this time. I got this. So humility is so important. You know, also, you hear a lot of sponsors saying that when the 5th step is completed, they always ask your sponsees, what have you not told me? Is there something you're holding back? Let's get it all out, because it's being, you know, it's the humility, it's and honesty. You know, we've talked about honesty all through the book. You know, we have to get honest with ourselves. Yeah, we have to get honest with other people too. Get it out, so we're not holding it inside. These are the blockages that are keeping us away from God. So we get it out, so it's not killing us anymore. It's not eating our lunch, as some people talk about. You know, tell me everything you're going to tell me. Okay. Remember, we trust our sponsor. And if we don't, we get a new sponsor. More than most people, the alcoholic leads a double life. He is very much the actor. To the outer world, he presents a stage character. This is the one he likes his fellows to see. He wants to enjoy a certain reputation, but knows in his heart he doesn't deserve it. Want me to keep going, Leo?
Yep, let's go ahead. And it's a short.
The inconsistency is made worse by the things he does on his sprees. Coming to his senses, he is revolted at certain episodes he vaguely remembers. These memories are a nightmare. He trembles to think someone might have observed him. As fast as he can, he pushes these memories far inside himself. He hopes they will never see the light of day. He is under constant fear and tension. That makes for more drinking.
Yep. And so, more than most people, the alcoholic leads a double life. We always put on a different mask for the outside world as opposed to what we really truly are. Everybody does it. That's part of the human condition. But more than most alcoholics do that, because obviously we understand that we are alcoholic. And at this point, we have admitted that we are powerless over this disease that we have. And it's important for us to try and get past that. But so I used to present, you know, this I'm in control, I've got this kind of, you know, egotistical kind of place. I would act like I knew what was going on, and then inwardly, privately, I would be afraid of all get out as far as, you know, taking a drink and drinking. Yet I would do it anyway, but I would try and hide. I would try to withdraw and do this in a private manner so that I wouldn't have to be exposed to somebody else that I had a drinking problem, etc. And you know, I wanted my reputation to not be tarnished. And unfortunately, I think that, you know, if I look back and I'm honest, my reputation was already tarnished. I was the one causing the problems. I was in control of my destiny, and I was failing miserably. And it was apparent to other people. And I've got instances that I can remember even to this day right now that I know that I was found out and I was embarrassed for it, but I didn't, you know, I still drank, and I still just made it worse. And it does talk about that this inconsistency made it worse by the things we do on our sprees. And that would be the thing. I would drink at work. Of all things, drinking at work was just terrible at the end of the day. And somebody would come in. I would have, I would try and talk to them, but I'd be slurring my speech or something. And you could just see it on their face that they knew that I was drinking, and what a problem that was causing. But I did come to my senses, and I'm revolted by that very fact. I was recorded one time by my wife, and I was appalled and embarrassed and just aghast of what I was doing, saying, and acting, and it sticks with me even to this day. To remember, and I try to remember, because remember we can't remember, but I try to remember all of those bad things and that nightmare, and I avoid it at all costs. And that if we don't remember, if we don't do this right, if we don't make sure that we've cleaned our side of the street, cleaned house, etc., we're going to find that we're going to be drinking again. Rob? Looks like Rob has frozen up.